quick reminder, each episode could contain some game spoilers, so please listen or watch with discretion. And now, your hosts for the Gamer's Advocate, AMKomnenos, Banana, and Legion. Enjoy the show.
Well, welcome to another one of the Gamer's Advocates podcasts. Today we're doing something pretty special. We're drafting players for our fantasy role-playing game, whatever. I don't know how many rounds we'll do. Maybe we'll do 4, maybe we'll do 5, but each person we picked, we'll talk a little bit about that and, of course, hand that off to the next person. We do have some rules in a place here. One is we want to pick characters that are pretty much known from their gameplay. So that excludes things like Marvel's characters or DC characters, things like that. It's like Spider-Man, for instance, but we won't be picking those type of heroes in this draft. But anyway, we're going to start off. I think it's going to go Banana, myself, and then Com, and then we're just going to rotate it through. But since there's been a lot of drafts for fantasy football drafts and things, we just figured we'd kind of enter in that spirit and do our own little gaming draft. So without further ado, we'll start off with Banana.
Master Chief.
Oh.
Gonna go with what feels like an easy choice. We've probably talked about Chief a bit and the Halo series. Chief is a Spartan in the world of Halo. But as far as Spartans go, Chief is special. Chief is selected by Cortana for his unique qualities, and one of those is canonically superhuman luck. Things just work out for Chief. He makes a lot of what most people would consider stupid decisions that turn out to be the right ones. And that is a tremendous kind of ability, I guess, if you want to call it that. I don't know if it's a skill as much as just something that happens. Like, you don't see him practice. But I guess, he does make a lot of stupid decisions and they do work out. So maybe he does practice.
I think, honestly, it's the obvious first choice. I just had to amend my list and take him off first. You have the archetypal great soldier. It's not more complicated than that. And honestly, luck, that's a superpower. If things just fall in your direction, if you just turn up aces every time you pick up the cards, that's one of those really intangible benefits that is going to pay off in every possible situation. I have no reproach for picking this.
I feel like that's going to come up again in future picks.
That's what yours is. It's just a series of people lucking through life.
Listen,
I bet they've all got posh accents. All of them. You can tell they were born.
I've played fantasy sports before, and if luck was like a player stat, I would pick the luckiest players in every position.
Well, it's interesting because oftentimes when there's a stat for luck, it's usually ignored. But every game that I've ever played that has luck as an option, you don't want to ignore it. It actually plays a bigger role than you might think. But there's not very many games that implement it. But when it does, look for it. Because it can make a big difference, actually.
Well, it tends to have that feeling of it modifies everything. Just a little bit in your favor. It's that 1% boost in everything you can possibly do. Which, depending on how advanced your character might be, that could be an enormous boost. And if we're thinking of RPGs and games like that as well, the scavenging, just the kind of items you're picking up, that makes a huge difference.
Right. So I'll go next. I'm not going to go with the obvious, Com. No, I'm going with Samus.
I'm going to change my number 2?
I'm going to Samus. Samus is my number 1. Yeah. Samus, whatever you throw at Samus handles. There's no question about it. Big build, big personality. All that's hidden behind the mask. You just get done what you need to get done. There is some role play stuff that comes down later on with the lore, but as a character, whatever needs to happen needs to happen. You need to turn into a little tiny ball and throw some bombs. We can do it. No problem. But Samus's lore is actually wonderful because Samus lost her family early on. She could just throw it all away and or even if she wanted to, just look at revenge, only at revenge. But actually faced with Ripley, for the first time in her canonical playthrough, really as an adult from after that incident with her family, she freezes up. But then she quickly realizes, hey, look, I got to get stuff handled. So I think I think Samus for me is definitely somebody I want on my side, regardless of the scenario.
Do you have sort of a role in mind for Samus in the team, or have you picked just a bunch of heroes?
I think we kind of mentioned before, like it could either be like your main protagonist or any accompanying companion, or any playable NPC, I guess we could say. So anybody like Liara, for instance, you can pick that person. But no, I think Samus is probably my main. Regardless, I don't know where necessarily it would give some context based on who else is on the team. But she's my first in, probably last out.
Yeah, again, it's hard to approach, but I think you're gonna find in the first round of picks, so to speak, you're gonna find the biggest, the baddest, the best, the leaders. So Master Chief, Samus, and you know what mine's gonna be. So I think the top three, if I can round it off, is it my turn?
Mm-hmm.
Commander Shepard. It has to be. I initially had him and again, I'm going to say him just because the Shepard I play is the male Shep. It was going to be in a sort of co-leadership role along with Master Chief, because I thought between those two, someone's always going to know what to do. But the reasons that I've picked Shepard in that sort of first ballot position, that leadership position, is a quick thought I had, which is they always seem to get out last. Always.
Mhm.
There's always the get to safety, get to safety, get to safety. You can see so many times Shepard pushing people out, go, 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 thinking of a certain suicide mission, for example, when they're never going to let everyone else go after them. Sorry. So having them in a position of leadership, I thought makes sense because they lead by example. They are an example of that not giving up, because there are so many times throughout that series of games where Shepard looks like they should be on the losing side, looks like they could be on the losing side, but even if they are, it doesn't matter. They will still give it everything they've got, and they will still try and fight through to the end. And the last thing was just a moment that happened in Mass Effect 3, and it really calls to both of those. And this isn't an ending of Mass Effect 3 spoiler for anyone who hasn't played it and wants to. When we've just lost Anderson, and Shepard is just sitting there, essentially bleeding out. And the call comes through from Hackett. And the response is still, what have I got to do? That, I think, is the ideal leader. Even in that situation, the thought is still, okay, let's get to work.
I guess we move into round 2 then.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to dispute anything you said. I mean, you clearly...
Yeah.
I mean, Shepard's clearly...
I feel like we all picked characters where the general consensus is, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
that guy. Yeah, like that gal.
And I picked mine not thinking like, okay, Samus, if I don't pick him now, somebody else is going to take him, right? It was more like,
That's exactly
I
why
think
I
I
picked
still, I think I still, no matter what, would have Samus as my number one. But yeah, solid picks in the first round, no matter what.
And it's funny, I think we all kind of picked a role. Like we all kind of picked the leader role in the first round. It feels like, despite the fact that we only really had a couple of rules of, video game character above everything else, not any other form of media, and playable character, protagonist or protagonist adjacent, it's playable. I feel like we all kind of had the same approach where it's like, well, we're going to need a leader, and we'll probably need somebody to fill this role, and we'll need somebody to fill this role. And that was never in the rules, but we just kind of all adopted it.
I have 100% adopted that.
So
All
I
right,
guess
Banana,
as far as
we're going to go round 2.
round
Who you
2,
got?
Kratos.
Oh,
I think
that.
just within the context of their own stories, there are few people who are given such like if you just at face value discuss what Kratos' goal is, it sounds like nonsense. Like, this is a man who's going to kill a god. And then this becomes a man who's going to kill every god. And it's so absurd. And it's just like, imagine anyone else in video gaming describing their end goal as something that is like almost by definition not possible and then achieving that end goal. Like Sonic's goal is going fast. You can do that. Like nobody's gonna look at that and just be like, nah, that's not a thing. But but if Sonic showed up and he was like, I'm gonna kill God, you'd be like, no, you're not. You're just not.
Know your role, mate.
Yeah, go fast. Go away from here very fast.
I think even actually if you put that in reference to something like Elden Ring, for example, where you are out there to essentially kill gods, there's all sorts of caveats to it. These are gods who have fallen, or the gods form on the planet that you're in, or the weapon that you need, kind of, to kill a god is a specially forged weapon, and you have to go through the challenge to get that first. With Kratos, it's just more of a let's go.
You're not angry enough. Just get angrier, and then you'll kill them.
You haven't seen me playing Elden Ring.
Yeah,
Not angry enough.
So it's not enough.
One of the great things about mythology is that, I mean, obviously it's based in a lot of fantasy and ways of trying to rationalize the natural world. But in our own fantasy heads, we're like, there are no gods anymore of the, Apollo and all them. But what if something happened to them? So there's always that little back door that allows us to create a certain element of realism with, because a lot of them had, personalities. Number 2 for me, Sonic, I think. No.
And Legion's out.
No, I'm going to go with Revan. So Revan, or Space Wizard here. I was kind of on the fence about that, but it was like he exists only in gaming. There was no Revan before the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a canonical Master Jedi and a canonical Darth. And he's able to merge both. And he actually exists even beyond KOTOR. A lot of people have been given different polls for, various categories or whatever. It's like, would you take this Darth over Revan, or would you take this Jedi over Revan? Almost every time Revan is picked as the consensus. I want that Jedi. I want that Darth on my side. I get the best of both worlds with Revan.
But again, just because Star Killer is not an option.
Yeah, I'm sure that would have been the first otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think with Revan, what is deemed to be canonical then for Revan? Or is it both?
So Revan is canonically a male, and he was a Jedi first, and then he became a Darth. But he found out that there was a bigger danger out in the galaxy. And that's what he set out to go do. And that's why you don't hear from him at all, that they just know that he left in KOTOR 2. But that's what he's out doing, is that he's out to try to figure out what this, because he senses that there's something really goofy going on in the Force.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that one. I get the only problem would be if you looked into it too finitely, which is not what we're doing here. I have no idea how Revan would ever take orders at that point. I have no idea how well they'd fit in a team, but we're not going in that far. This is somewhat power fantasy, right?
Right. We don't have roles necessarily. Otherwise, if I like my quarterback or my whatever it is in football, the European football, the forward or whatever. I don't know. I don't know the terms. No, we're not doing positions because I think we all kind of came to the consensus that we can't really agree on the sport and how to apply them. So
I think for myself, it was just, can we keep this vaguely balanced? And that's it. And that's all. There's not too much thought beyond that. I guess I'll take my pick too, unless Banana has something to add for Evan.
I do not.
Okay. Solid Snake. Think safe option, safe pair of hands. I'm going to go on really 2 big points. The first one is the ability to drop into any mission with any equipment and still get the job done. So I think this would be, if you were applying a role, this would be a scout in some way. This would be someone going ahead, or possibly if a side mission popped up, they go and do it on their own. So you've got someone who's so resourceful they can drop in, procure equipment on site, and still get it done. Never gives up, and I think this is most personified in Metal Gear Solid 4, where you don't, well, you play a Solid Snake, but you play as a Solid Snake who is suffering from advanced aging. So you don't get to play a Solid Snake in their 20s or in their 30s. You're playing as a Solid Snake who biologically is 60, 70 years old, feels like it, and is suffering. But I'm sure you can imagine it's a Metal Gear Solid game. They get the job done by the end, despite that massive handicap that they've got playing against them. So their ability to drop into any mission, get things done, no matter what they go in with, the never giving up. I think they would probably defer to someone else. They do have that history in the military. They take orders the entire way through the games that they're playing. So they wouldn't necessarily attempt to take prime position, meaning if Shepard were the commander, they would listen. And they have shown repeatedly that they're willing to sacrifice their own desires and wants if need be. So that's why I would be for putting Solid Snake into that position. You could also do Big Boss for very similar reasons.
Did you see the trailer for the next game?
Is that the remake of Snake Eater?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a remake necessarily, but he goes in and his code name is Naked Snake, I think.
Yeah. No, this is the fine tickly bit. That's not Solid Snake. That's Big Boss, who is genetically, I believe, identical, or very close to genetically identical to Solid Snake.
Yeah, that was going to be what I brought up when you said, or you could make the argument for Big Boss, and I was like, or you could make the argument that they're the same person. Because
Right. Yeah, it could also be Venom Snake, who is neither Big Boss nor Solid Snake, but is essentially identical. Oh, but that's where that's the Metal Gear
a little
Solid
bit
universe,
of
Michelle.
convolution to that lore in Metal Gear Solid.
Kojima?
Yeah.
No. Don't besmirch him.
Makes about as much sense as Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
We're going pretty fast on this. We're going to need longer descriptions of our picks.
We need more arguing.
Well, I can talk about this next one for a long time if you want.
Go ahead.
So I think I feel like we've all we've weirdly picked characters from games that involve combat, despite the fact that combat was never established as a goal.
Mm-hmm.
It was just pick iconic characters.
With the mayor from SimCity.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know where we got that idea. It's still kind of stuck in my head. And my next pick was going to be along those lines, is Aerith. I just feel like as far as any character goes, that is the iconic white mage. That's your healer, that's your inspiration, that is very much the almost archetypical sacrificial hero, like a character who is willing to give everything for the benefit of the world around them. And I know that we haven't talked about this as a combat kind of focused thing, but within game, Aerith is broken. If you put in the work to get her final limit, which you can get relatively early in the game, it's broken. It's like you win this fight no matter what. If you get Aerith's limit in a fight, you've won. So I approach every kind of like white mage discussion as like, when do you ever top a white mage who heals your entire party and makes them invincible in a single move, and that invincibility lasts for like 30 seconds? There's no one better.
That is an interesting point, isn't it, of their game design there. If you were to actually level up your character, I feel we can talk about Final Fantasy VII, like, spoiler free, right? We can discuss spoilers.
I feel like that's one of those games where the spoiler is so well known that it's not a spoiler anymore.
It's very I see dead people. That if you take the chance to level her up, you will notice that you're missing a white mage for the rest of the game. You will really become aware of that. If you just had a white mage in the sense of giving Barrett the cure materia, or whatever it might be, you can still work. But if you leveled her up, the difference is astounding.
Mhm.
Absolutely enormous in terms of what they can do. I guess the only questioning point I would have for you as to putting Aerith in the team is I
While
almost
she's
feel-
still alive.
Yeah,
Just
but
to be
this is
clear.
my feeling is she's destined to die. I think no matter where she is, she's going to die. She's just going to die. She's destined to it. That's her path. Her path is death in some tragic way to motivate the others. So I think if we're doing 5 people, I think you've got a 4-person team after half an hour.
Well, maybe she's
a
in.
4-person team that's invincible.
No, she's dead. They're invincible in that first 30 minutes.
But she can
I know,
cast that limit break and then die. Just saying.
Okay, they're invincible for the first 30 minutes and 30 seconds.
So there's no chance she's in Chocobo Heaven or wherever.
So that was always my one of the things I thought was kind of hilarious about the fandom around Final Fantasy VII is there was always kind of this hope that you could bring Aerith back.
Yeah.
And
You
like
just
it
did.
is one of the like first kind of memes before memes existed was like the belief that you could resurrect her. And I think given what I've just talked about as like as far as Aerith's role in that game, it's evidence that that was not the case. Because oh my god, if you go into the final boss fight with a character that can make everybody full health and invincible, it's not a fight anymore.
It's academic, isn't it, from that
yeah.
point on? It's an
I think
exercise in patience.
that does kind of lend itself to the idea that the only version of Aerith that exists beyond 30 minutes is a dead version. But that being said, she's alive at one point, and until you guys recruit Sephiroth to your team, which you can't because he's not playable,
What?
she's
Hold on, you
still
haven't played
alive.
Rebirth. Honestly,
No,
I
he
think
is, I mean, technically playable.
if you've got a live Aerith, which obviously that's a good start,
Yeah.
and we're living in a world that doesn't fit my idea for her, which is destined to die, I think it's a really good choice. There's also a secondary thing though, where if she is destined to die, she has a story beyond death anyway.
Mhm.
She's still there, and we've talked about that before.
Yeah,
with the
and
music
especially
those
with
reminders.
the lore of Final Fantasy VII, like Aerith is destined to, or Aerith dies, almost makes her more powerful.
Yeah, very
Aerith
much in that
is,
almost.
yeah,
You
Aerith
lose
is
her
the
to-
consciousness within the life stream with the force of will to guide the life stream. Like that's more powerful than any character in Final Fantasy VII.
I really, really want you to play Rebirth. I really want you to.
I feel like this is gonna ruin some Final Fantasy headcanon for me.
Probably. We'll talk about it off stream. You need to. See, you said Legion, we were getting through these a bit too quickly. He picks a Final Fantasy VII character.
Oh, you're good.
Different story.
An hour and a half later, pick number 4.
Well, we're cutting it there, guys.
So it's actually really interesting that you prefaced your pick with, I know we've been talking about combat. We just kind of gravitated toward that. And then you pick, more or less a non-combat character, which I was going to do this pick anyway.
Support character.
Yeah. And so I was going to do this pick anyway at this point. So it's really interesting. I think Banana and me have a very similar, I like to compare notes on our fantasy football draft if we ever do one together, because I think we think alike. Yeah, I'm going to go with Viconia from Baldur's Gate. A healer, the best cleric in the game. I mean, until you get to Baldur's Gate 3, which of course you can't play her in 3. But unquestionably,
destroy her character.
Yeah. I have an almost 2-hour lore video about Viconia and my thoughts on that. So if you want to find out what I really think, go watch the video. But anyway.
And we'll do another version on this podcast.
Right. But no, she's definitely a healer. She has some offensive capabilities, but it's all going to be clearly done on her cleric side. She's kind of useless with her mace, but she has some ability, right? Her stats are really great.
Baldur's Gate 2, you give her Crom Fair and she's...
Right. Right.
terror.
Right. There's a way around all. Exactly. Yeah. But the point here is that she really has no real weakness. And what's really great about her is her character arc on top of it all. So one thing I've noticed between Samus, Revan, and Vicky, pretty much neutral characters, if you could ever define them. I really like the ability to decide.
Vicky has an alignment.
A neutral alignment.
Not neutral.
Well, you can make her a...
you can make her neutral in Baldur's Gate 2, and then she's not neutral in Baldur's Gate 3.
Right. No, she's not. But again, that goes to the whole, like, what is the canon playthrough here? And I think Larian had definitely picked a side on that. But I think there's some other elements that create that story and why it goes the way it does. But again, watch my 2-hour video and it might, might give a little bit more information about that. But no, I really like her as like the support character and being able to like stand back and still be able to hold her ground, because it's not like her other stats like Constitution are low. She's good to go.
I have to plead ignorance. I'm not familiar with the character.
Viconia, Baldur's Gate 2 and Baldur's Gate 1. Yeah, that's
Baldur's
fine.
Gate
That's
2 I
fine.
never finished.
So
Baldur's
who do you
Gate, I
want
found my
as
party,
like a
so-
third co-host, Legion?
Sock puppet com.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Viconia.
I was about to turn off my camera, but I couldn't put it back on.
Yeah, that's probably too big a risk.
That's an edit thing, right? I'm gonna be gone now.
Yeah.
Just gonna be a sock puppet.
We're just going to go find somebody else to talk to about this.
I wouldn't put it past you. This segment now, it's you filming on a smartphone in the street, talking to someone
with
about
somebody who knows who Viconia is.
Yeah. God, we could do a whole behind the scenes video then of how long it took you to find someone.
Oh, yeah, it's that real ugly drow in Baldur's Gate 3.
Next.
It's good to know that you've got a principle, you've got a moral line.
Yeah.
And that's where it fell.
There's no such thing as an ugly drow. That's canon.
That's right. That's my point too. Yeah, they're bred very specifically for their beauty so that they can manipulate people.
They're the Asari of D&D.
The genetic trait of fuckable.
Yeah. They use it as a tool.
And weirdly, Legion loves them in D&D, but hates the Asari.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Because they're evil
You
aligned.
judge.
They're evil aligned.
Yes. That's what it is. Legion doesn't like people who are attractive and deceptive if they have a good heart. If they're a piece of shit on the inside, Legion's on board.
Yeah. They're not hiding who they are. Mm-hmm.
It's sort of okay.
But Banana has me figured out.
But it's from the 1960s, I think. You like the Richard Nixon characters. You like people who look as shady as they actually are. You don't want the deception.
Right. Yeah. I am not a crook. Well, but see.
Except for every definition of the word is very appropriate.
Somebody else was talking to me, like when I was first making the Viconia video. He's like, yeah, but you're going to make sure you note that they're actually much taller than most races too, or something. And actually, they're not. Drow are not particularly much taller than everybody else. I think they're just portrayed that way.
I think that maybe the kind of slender nature lends itself to portraying them as tall, but given their lore, I don't think height makes a lot of sense. I mean, the other Underdark races are dwarves and gnomes, so
as a sort of the Napoleon idea. It's not so much that he was short, rather he's surrounded by these enormous guards, making him look smaller by comparison. You have that inverted with the drow.
Yeah, I looked everywhere for that when I was told that. I was like, make sure you tell him, like, I don't think so. I looked everywhere. And just the regular guides for D&D, just tell them like 5'10", 6 foot somewhere.
That's such a funny way to get trolled. It's so soft.
I always love when people volunteer false information as if they're educating you.
Those hours you spent on Google afterwards, wasted.
Yeah. I am now not smarter. I'm just more confident about what I knew 10 hours ago.
But you realize now that if that person watches this video, though, they'll know that it worked.
But the other side of it is that it's one thing that I may not even have any intention of talking about their height on a video. But what if somebody makes a comment about it? And then I have to reply to it. That was my thought. So
Just reply, get wrecked, noob.
yeah,
Ban.
look it up.
Man.
So who do you got, Com? Who's your third?
So my
pick?
Who's your white mage?
Oh, when you see who this is, they are not a white mage.
Okay.
For my third choice, I did sort of lean into the idea of a backup character. It's not someone who would be leading the group. I didn't go down the white mage path. So I decided to go for Nathan Drake from the Uncharted series.
Mhm.
And the main reason, well, there are actually two. One of them is if there's a puzzle, we're going to need Nathan Drake around. I've no doubt Snake could solve a puzzle. I've no doubt Commander Shepard could delegate to someone else to solve a puzzle. Nathan Drake is going to be the one in there solving that puzzle. So we got Nathan Drake on hand just in case we find ourselves in some sort of mist world, MYST mist. So
I'm
we've
going to
got
blow
Nathan
your
Drake.
mind here. That's kind of Kratos' role as well. I mean, if you play through
It's
all
true.
of the God of War games, they're puzzle games. I mean, there's combat, but there's also a lot of puzzles.
This is true. Well, there you go. You did two birds with one stone. I was, however, stupid and didn't. So we got in for that. And the second thing is luck. We've talked about how luck matters. No one is luckier than Nathan
Yeah,
Drake.
that's
Nathan
true.
Drake is not superhuman. Nathan Drake doesn't have powers. Maybe that parkouring ability that's slightly enhanced in some way. Goodness knows how. But down, brass tacks, he's a human. It's that simple. And I think Nathan Drake on his own, powerful. Nathan Drake as a part of a team with that luck, he's going to keep him going through thick and thin. Final point, levity. I would imagine Commander Shepard gets really annoying to be around after a while. Honestly. Especially if, as it is in my world, it's male Shep. You imagine that Mark Meer delivery all day? Nah.
That's why Legion only has like 3 hours in Mass Effect.
Yeah. My EA account got all screwed up, so EA thinks I only have like 3 hours in the game. So yeah.
Yeah, well, one day when you're a real fan, we'll listen to your opinions on it. But until that day.
I can't believe we did an entire episode with somebody who's never even played it.
Ugh, nerd. So we've got keeping the tone light. In the event puzzles arise, Nathan Drake's on hand, and finally luck. And there's an interesting mechanic that I found out about that exists in the Uncharted games, which is as you leave cover, the first bullet always misses you.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's fired by an opponent. And I think that's a beautiful little mechanic. And if you just take that and extrapolate that out to how lucky he is, no matter what, if he pops his head up, one shot will always miss.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use that as an illustration of how lucky Nathan Drake is, I think honestly he's a shoo-in for any team.
Yeah, that's a good choice because especially when you noted some of the action sequence and how they weave themselves into the lore of Nathan Drake. To me, and it just may be me seeing things that aren't there, but like sometimes when he shoots somebody, like they're shocked that they got shot. Like he's pointing over there, but I got shot. And it's almost like the NPC or the whatever the enemy is like, hey,
what? But this is true. Like if you meet the luckiest guy in the world, do you want him on your side or the other side during a firefight? There's only one way that die falls. So Nathan Drake joins Commander Shepard and Solid Snake on my team, unless Banana has some cutting, scathing criticism to offer.
No, I think I mean honestly you'll see a very similar pick from me in the future.
Is it his
Depending on how many rounds we go, because this is a pick that I am absolutely confident nobody else is going to come up with. So I'm reserving it for what we decide. I'm reserving it for what we decide the last round is.
All right, deal. But that's my team up until this point.
All right, Banana, we're going back to round 4.
Which I'm assuming is not the last round.
Doesn't feel
We'll
like
see.
the last.
We'll see. I was thinking at least 5, but we'll just go until we have time, I guess.
Then as far as round 4 goes, I wanted to pick a character whose like superpower almost seems like resilience. So I went with Jill Valentine.
That's good.
Jill is inexplicably indestructible.
That's really
I mean,
good.
you'll see her across that entire series take abuse that no one should be able to survive. I mean, she has kind of a natural immunity that is addressed in game, but nobody ever addresses the fact that she's, thrown through a wall in a building and slammed into the wall on the other side of the room, and then she runs away like nothing's broken. She's not even in so much pain that it's difficult for her to move after a few seconds. She's just like, that was inconvenient, but I have to go that way. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to keep going. And I feel like she is the definitive character for resilience.
That's a really, really good choice. It's frustratingly good. There's also an element, I think, of the luck with her
Mhm.
as well. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of in the original Resident Evil, the amount of times that Barry's going to show up at just the right moment when she turns the corner just in time to see X event happening. That's a perfect choice.
And the
Um,
elements of, well, spoilers for Resident Evil 1, the elements of the fact that Barry doesn't actually have an allegiance to her or an organization that she belongs to. Barry's got his own shit going on, and he actually has a conflict of interest with Jill.
yeah.
But at his core, he knows he has to save her and continues to make that decision, even though it's not in his best interest. Yeah,
It's not
I
so much that
mean,
she's going to lead.
it's less so much leadership as much as like bringing out the best in the people around you,
Yes.
which is a weird kind of way to describe leadership, but it kind of is leadership.
Yeah. It's a softer leadership skill. It's not go and do this. It's inspiring, like you say, the best, and having these people try to help, want to help you.
Mhm.
That's yeah. I mean, like I said before, to me, Resident Evil is like spooky miss. So she's solving puzzles too. So
Mhm.
Yeah, oh my goodness, Kratos and Jill arguing over what to do with the broken shotgun.
there you go. So I guess for my round 4, actually, it's pretty interesting. Me and Banana are still tag teaming this issue because I feel like this is like our DPS section, right? Because I got Samus and I got Revan, who can hit aggressively and probably accurately, but they're probably not doing it like on a DPS level like you need them to. I got my healer, of course. So I'm going to go with Lara Croft, who's my
I knew she was going to make an
pure
appearance.
DPS.
Yeah, she was on my list. She's now off it.
Yeah, she's kind of like the anti-hero, I would say, in many ways, because whereas you have somebody who's helping lead, she's really always by herself. And even though she has a team, she's essentially alone almost all the time, doing everything by herself, solving all the puzzles by herself. And of course, she's rich, she's beautiful, she's intelligent, all the things that I appreciate. So.
What was our goal in choosing this team? Because I feel like I need to reevaluate some things.
I'm concerned that Legion might have just set up the romance option.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another bit of an all-rounder character. You have a good set of perseverance with her as well. Thinking particularly when you go into the reboot, I think, and you look at some of the things that happens to her and that continuation, no matter what, the keeping on. Yeah, she would be a good addition.
Mhm.
Are there any possible weaknesses to her? Nothing springs out.
Memories.
Okay, the possibility of a breakdown.
I haven't played as many of the Tomb Raider games, but I feel like in every one of those stories, there's a moment where it's revealed that Laura was a terrible judge of character regarding somebody else. So I would say that might be an element of a weakness.
It's almost the protagonist's curse, isn't it? A lot
Yeah.
of the time, the willingness to believe in the best in everyone else inevitably leads to
Mhm.
betrayal.
Yeah, and I just surrounded her with like evil, neutral,
Yeah.
chaotic, evil characters.
Morally
so,
ambiguous characters.
So it's appropriate. Yeah.
I just imagine Lara Croft though surrounded by increasingly awful people and still only seeing the good in them.
Yeah. I feel like Legion has built his team with the goal of basically directing them towards any whim he might have. Like, this is going to be my team for whatever I have in mind, and that might not be the best thing.
Then I guess I'm up for the next one. And I thought it would have been a character who would have come up by now, especially that team that Legion is making. Morrigan from Dragon Age. And it was partially based upon what we were just saying, but in a slightly inverted sense. I've got a feeling that the team so far, Shepard, Solid Snake, Nathan Drake, they're all maybe a little bit too good-hearted. I'm not saying Morrigan's evil, she definitely isn't, but I think there's a certain cynicism there that wouldn't go amiss. And possibly a pragmatism and a willingness to break away from the team if something isn't going correctly. I'm thinking particularly of a certain thing she does towards the end of Dragon Age Origins, and that ability to
Towards the
pursue.
end or at the end?
I was thinking, is it towards the end or at the end? So she seems like someone who would be very, very willing to pursue her own agenda if she thinks it's the right thing to do. And I think that these other characters, there are things that they wouldn't do if it was for the greater good. They wouldn't be able to look at things. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but they wouldn't be able to have that more utilitarian approach of we're willing to let one person suffer for 1,000 people to live in happiness or whatever it might be. The other members of the team would be much more willing to have those 1,000 people live unhappily, so this one other person wouldn't be tortured. Objectively, the right thing to do, but I think it would be a nice counterbalance to have someone like Morrigan within the team, especially because I don't think they would just be a voice for it. They are clearly willing to go and do these things. So it would be a real and genuine opposition to what I think with these others might end up being something of a groupthink. These other characters are people who are very much going to agree with each other on basically everything. She'll probably agree on the ends. She won't necessarily always agree on the means.
I think she's an interesting one. Probably not one I would have thought of myself, just because within the world, it seems like there's almost a Morrigan plus in Flemeth. Like, that's the end game for Morrigan's character, is to become Flemeth. You learn more about her and you realize that's not the case. But when you're initially introduced to her, it kind of seems like she is training under Flemeth with the goal of becoming that character almost. Maybe just as powerful or as capable as that character, but like knowing that there is a mentor for that character makes it seem like it's almost more appropriate to pick the mentor, which would
Yeah.
violate the rules. But I think with Morrigan, as you learn more about the world and you learn more about Flemeth, you kind of realize that that's not an accurate description of what she is. Morrigan is very much her own character, and becoming Flemeth was never a goal for her. So, yeah, I think that initial kind of thought that popped into my mind becomes easy to dismiss, but I think that's why I didn't immediately think of a character like Morrigan.
It's the fun of those two characters, isn't it? When you sum them up into a pithy little nutshell where Morrigan wants to become Flemeth and Flemeth wants to become Morrigan.
Yeah, the advantage of Morrigan, of course, is that the versatility you have with a spellcaster like her, because she can turn into a spider. You know, she can optionally go to one of her more effective spirit-based spells, whatever. Which there's not a lot of routes that make sense with the mages in that spirit tree, but for her it does. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think her versatility is what I think of when I think of Morgan. So
yeah, I think initially I went into it more from the perspective of the character, their narrative, their story, their personality. But if you also, like you say, you just boil it down to pure technique and tactics, she would have a role to play.
So it looks like we're going into a round 5 already. So
Round 5.
I'd say maybe 6 would be our max for this, but we'll see.
6 is a good number.
Yeah, 6 is a good number.
Sounds good.
All right.
We'll see if I get away with this next pick. I think I'm bending some rules here.
Already prepping to say no.
Hero from Tetris. Hero is a get out of jail free card. That is what that piece is. No matter what situation you are in, getting that piece is a benefit. And if you get exclusively that piece, you're golden. If I could make Hero every character on my team, that would be the solution. Because working towards your goal in Tetris is always maximizing points, more or less. I mean, there are other kind of modes where you're just surviving. Nothing maximizes points like the hero piece. Getting a Tetris is the goal. Hero represents the only means of getting a Tetris. You can't do it with any other piece. And even if you haven't set up for a Tetris, Hero's gonna help.
I don't know if I like you anymore. That
checks out.
The world's coming to an end. There's a puzzle in our way, and Kratos throws Hero in the room.
Exactly.
I'm imagining
it works every time.
I'm imagining these two teams appear on the same battlefield opposite each other. Thinking of like some sort of Avengers moment, like they're leaping from the helicopter one by one. Shepard jumps down, Master Chief jumps down, Solid Snake jumps down. Then all of a sudden, just this fucking block tumbles out.
Yeah.
Falls on the ground.
Doesn't even need a parachute or nothing. Just falls.
No, he just...
I think you're also ignoring another element of Hero. The only thing that destroys Hero is Hero.
I'm willing to allow this, despite my self-worth. I'd be willing to allow the presence of Hero in this. I think it was a case convincingly argued.
I feel like if you ignore the concept of a protagonist or playable character in Tetris, then I think we're good. But like, what does that even mean in Tetris?
I think it's a good choice in that, like, it gives context to what we're saying is that, hey, look, it's whatever's making the game interesting so that we can, play as that thing and advance the game. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's also imagine that in this world, who knows? There might be a Tetris puzzle you need to solve. There might be. Who's to say there isn't? If there is, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, if another BioWare game can't be a BioWare game if it doesn't include a Towers of Hanoi in it, so
that's true.
they could switch to Tetris.
It's a small.
Can I change my answer to just recursion in general? The concept of recursion.
Just thinking, who on my team knows maths? Oh.
Yeah. Kratos, you kind of let me down on this one.
No, I've already got my pick. It's pretty obvious to me. I don't know why y'all haven't chosen it yet, but I'm going to go with the Dovahkiin, the most important person in all of Elder Scrolls up to this point. And, he's the shout. Previously with Alduin, you needed a Dovahkiin and a bunch of other peoples and the help of an Elder Scrolls just to move Alduin to the future. This Dovahkiin handles it in his own timeline, in his own presence. He discovers his own world. He's a master of his own being. And I kind of almost didn't want to go with an Elder Scrolls character, but just because there's so much, like, you make the character what you want it to be. And so there's no real canonical, but canonically he does handle the World Eater. So
yeah, I think that was kind of my reticence to pick any character that was kind of customizable, and their experience is very customizable. I mean, obviously Shepard is customizable, but like the story of Shepard, the details are kind of ambiguous as far as a canon playthrough, but they're canon events. And you're absolutely right. With the Dovahkiin, there's a canon event, and it is defeating Alduin, which was not even a possibility before the existence of the Dovahkiin. Like, you are the only person who has ever found a way to combat Alduin in a permanent sense. And that's, no one kind of compares. Take into the consideration the other elements of the Dovahkiin story, which is you can be the Harbinger, you can be the Listener, you could be the Archmage, and you could be the leader of the Thieves Guild. Like, this is the single most capable being in existence.
Yeah.
Pretty tough to argue against that call.
That, oddly enough, fell into my list of like also rans. So I'm 100% on board that it works. It doesn't count. It's not voiceless enough. It's not characterless enough. There is enough of a canon and a story for them to count. My only question mark over them, and it's largely mitigated by the idea that they can be all of these things. They can be the Master of the Thieves Guild, the fighters, whatever it might be, the companions. Are there dragons in this world? Because if there aren't, they've slightly hamstrung your hero.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you still have, they are immensely skilled in so many other ways, it almost doesn't matter. But that was the one question mark I had next to them.
Right. No, to be fair to the audience, I didn't get to hear our conversation before we recorded, was that the whatever powers or whatever abilities they have in that universe translates into whatever we transplant them to. So there may not be any dragons, but you can still speak dragon and you have those.
But no one listens.
Yeah.
But it still causes an external
It's a
force.
sad story.
You just chose a character whose superpower is being misunderstood. Superpower is language barrier. That's not a great one.
That could be the whole character arc. Just trying to restore a minority language.
And for my sixth character, it's
I bet there's a
Duolingo.
Duolingo for it.
Yeah.
Then I guess it's on me, and this is the fifth. So this initially would have been the final piece, if you were, and it's not supposed to be the strongest hero. It was supposed to be someone to keep the party grounded in everyday life, and it was going to be Barrett Wallace from Final Fantasy VII. So I think what you have with Barrett is a character who is willing to push back. A large part of what he does in the early game, especially Final Fantasy VII, is he's talking back to Cloud, who's taken on the role of leader. There's times when he wants to take on the role of leader himself, but doesn't. So he's willing to push back, willing to take second place, but also not to the extent of Morrigan. He's not going to be undermining the group. He's not going to be pursuing his own ends. He's just going to be able to contribute and then ultimately fall in line to do whatever needs to be done. But I think he would be a good moral compass for the group. And this is an odd point because he wouldn't be the only one in this situation. Oh, for my part, he might be actually, unless I'm missing something. He's a family man. And I think that matters. He's going to have that one sort of guiding motivation all through, which is keeping Marlene safe. We'll just say daughter for simplicity's sake. Keeping his daughter safe. And I think between that, his willingness to push back, he's going to focus as the moral compass of the group. He also has a gun for a hand,
And that's
which I feel shouldn't be a footnote.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I always enjoy the character of Barrett. I feel like in the original Final Fantasy, he's a bit simplified. I don't think the complexity of that character really shines through in the story as you're presented in Final Fantasy VII in the original gameplay. But I do think you've pointed out, like, he has his own motivations, he has his own frame of reference, his own point of view, and he brings that up a lot to basically almost serve as devil's advocate to Cloud, to say, I'm not disagreeing, but are you sure this is what we want to do next? I mean,
Yeah.
I need you to be confident in the decisions you're making. And I think that's a tremendous kind of necessity for any kind of leader, is to be absolutely certain. Particularly when you're making calls where people's lives are on the line.
Yeah, and that's where I think you summed it up perfectly. Almost fine-tuning the decision-making of the leaders and forcing them to reflect on whether it's the right idea would just make him a very valuable piece in any puzzle.
I have no comment because I don't know him very well, but he's got a gun for in hand, so you got my vote.
We've chosen him for such different reasons.
I have a proposition. Given that I've gone first in every round, what if we went in reverse order for the final round?
Are you trying to think of a sixth?
No, I have my pick.
Okay, just checking.
In fact, I've I've already said I'm extremely confident nobody is going to take it from me, so I have
know
no
what?
problem going last.
Is it going to be Smash
Same.
Boy? Because you've already taken Hero.
No, no. It's no one else
I-
from Tetris.
I've also picked one that I'm certain no one else has picked, so I'm still willing to go last. I would say maintain the order. Appreciating the offer, but I don't think I need to worry about it being.
Ooh, he's confident enough that he doesn't need your pity.
I don't know if I would even say it was pity. It was just variety.
It felt like pity.
Well, we got to remember, like anybody listening.
I mean, the pity's still there.
Right.
It's just
Right. Yeah.
we're just
It's not
not
the primary
showcasing it now.
motivation.
Any of our viewers or listeners can definitely put in comments to say who they thought won this particular session of
Yeah,
draft.
and
So
please explain why it was me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
It's hard for me to be outraged when I'm doing that on
Yeah.
camera at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
I just kind of assumed we were all going to make the same joke there.
No, Legion's a different standard than us. Wouldn't stoop so low.
Yeah.
I'm confident enough that I don't even need to point it out.
Oh, la,
Yeah.
la, la, la.
Way to really stand out from the crowd by making the exact same joke.
Unique, just like all of us. Go on, Banana. You got it.
So my last pick, and there's, I mean, almost two people that are interchangeable in this in my mind.
If this is mine, I'm going to be furious.
Guybrush Threepwood.
It's not mine.
So Guybrush Threepwood really pins that topic that we've brought up. Luck. Guybrush Threepwood is incompetent in every game, every single one. He never gets better. He is always incompetent, and everything works out for the best. And like he's solving puzzles, he's fighting, he's doing all sorts of things. He basically does a little bit of everything, and he's terrible at it in the most successful way you can be. That his superpower is success. It's what it is. It doesn't matter what he does, it will find a way to work out to what he wants to happen.
That's very good.
And the interchangeable person I was going to say is Roger Wilco, the main character of Space Quest. The exact same character. I feel like Guybrush Threepwood is a little more defined as a character, and he deliberately brings that levity at times, whereas Roger Wilco inadvertently brings that levity at times. But they're the same character in my mind.
I mean, the only possible, and it's quite big, opposition that one could make to this is the thing you said. He's massively incompetent. That is the one enormous footnote. That is the one large. It's not even a fly in the soup. It's a turd in the soup. Is complete incompetence. Are we certain the luck is going to be enough to override this? Until now, the track record says yes.
Yeah. He has like 7 games.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's enough data points for me.
Final Fantasy does tell me that Lucky 7 is a thing. So what happens now with Game 8? Or part of his life 8?
I'm going to be honest, I
the
didn't
luck run
count
out?
them, so I don't know how many games there actually are.
Oh, for goodness sake, Banana.
I told you, I played like 4 of them, and then when I tried to load the next one, it crashed. So I never got past that point.
In that case, remove my point. Fine, clearly the best. Make him the captain. Master Chief, get in the backseat.
Yeah. You're not lucky enough, Master Chief.
You're on the turn. No, I want him flying the plane.
Yeah. Master Chief, you're my backup as far as luck goes. How's that feel?
Yeah, he'll find like a whalebone and says, "What do I need this for?" and find something to use it for. So
yeah. Also, inventory management. No one beats Guybrush Threepwood. Dude has pockets for days.
I say he's the anti-Jill Valentine, isn't it?
Mm, yeah. She's carefully putting things together so that they fit nicely, and he's just throwing things in a bag that never seems to get any bigger.
I mean, at that point, you might as well have Rincewind. But for the pure luck, it's a good choice.
So I think for me, since you have Shepherd, and I have been very much on the side of evil or neutral evil.
Harbinger.
Well,
Ashley.
I'm gonna go with Garrus because it doesn't matter what I do, he's gonna be on board. And since you have Shepherd, there's no Shepherd without Vicarian. Well, you're gonna have to find out. So
I'm thinking Solid Snake's going to fulfill that role.
Hmm.
That's good.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, there's no Vicarian without Shepherd. And I feel like that one's a little more urgently defined.
We do see, don't we? Was it in the previous podcast where we discussed the hidden morality bar or Paragon Renegade bar, sorry, for Vicarian, showing just how much he is shaped by Shepard's actions. I mean, no matter what, even if you
Well, okay, so now we have an issue. So if say Com's team and Legion's team went to combat, who does Garrus follow?
Shepard would definitely turn him.
Yeah,
Definitely.
he has undying loyalty to Shepherd, who's on somebody else's team.
7-person team, baby.
You still got nothing on Hero, so
yeah,
That's true. No matter what, there's this pile of 4 blocks that no one knows what to do with.
Well, of all my heroes, though, Garrus can die. So I guess if it comes down to that,
yeah, that is true.
Well, I think we can always keep that big caveat with Garrus is even if you don't get that Garrus, you still have someone who's very competent, very capable, widely skilled as well. And
to be fair, I'm the only person who's picked the canonical death character, so I think you're fine.
Oh, shit, yeah. I forgot about her.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a good
27 years.
I'm going to go with Garrus. I'm going to go with a qualifier. If you get just Garrus, it's a good pick. If you get Shepherd Garrus, if you get that Garrus, it's a great pick.
Yeah, double down, but you didn't.
I don't need to. I don't need to. Because I know who my number 6 is. And I'm hoping you know who they are. Otherwise, I'm going to feel stupid. No,
I'm certain nobody's going to take my pick. It's from a game I made myself.
It's
haven't published it.
Honestly, it's a famous game. It's just, I think it's PlayStation exclusive, so I don't know how much you game on them. And it's a big series that requires quite a lot of time put into it. It's Kiryu Kazuma from Yakuza.
Okay.
And I'm going to go into this by, again, looking at the rest of the team, Morrigan being the one exception. It is a lot of goody two-shoes type characters. And I think Kiryu-san is probably going to go somewhere to keeping them like that because he is deeply flawed. A deeply flawed character who has done some terrible things in their past, has made bad decisions, but has done that and is then turning themselves around. And they essentially are a hero with an unheroic past. And I think that character
Kratos
in this
light.
group... Yeah. And possibly even more violent than Kratos. That character is pretty violent. That character in this group is going to focus again.
I'm not disagreeing that he's pretty violent. Have you met Kratos?
Let's just say, get them two together to have a drink. There's going to be stories to tell. And I think of the characters so far, he's also the one most capable of showing mercy and sympathy as and where needed. I think Shepard is a bit colder than that. Definitely has a heart, but is a bit colder. Barrett, too prone to rage. Solid Snake, extremely cold. Nathan Drake, very cavalier. Kiryu, I think there's more warmth within him than the others, which would just generally be a positive influence on the group and hopefully counteract some of Morrigan's more cynical side. Also, he's harder than nails, and we love it. When the feces hits the ventilator, you're going to want Kiryu on your side.
So
I think we have a different way of saying that phrase in the US.
I was thinking like we will go opposite for alternates. I was just going to do one quick, like if you could just think off the top of your head somebody that you'd want on your team.
Now I have to come up with more.
No. It's just one
On it.
alternate, just one alternate. Just like, but we'll start with Com and see if you can think of anybody off the top of your head.
Just someone else who would
Just
be
like
on
an
the team
alternate, yeah.
Can I have? And this was one of my ones that I didn't know if I could. The hero of Ferelden.
Yeah.
That passes. There's enough canon events to have.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They were my initial pick instead of Commander Shepard.
Mm-mm.
Oddly enough. And it was for that sense of leadership. It was for that sense of gravity, the ability to draw others in around you. So it was going to be either Hero Ferelden or Commander Shepard. So my alternate, in the case of, I mean, if someone's going to die in that group, it's Barrett, isn't it? in case Barrett gets taken out, the Hero of Ferelden's going to step in.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was going to go with Cthulhu from Cthulhu Saves Christmas.
Technically not from a game. He's defined elsewhere first.
Well, that's what I was like thinking. Like, I don't know. Technically, yeah, he's not really defined, but it's Cthulhu. So I thought, hey,
Oh, well, you're doing that. I want the nozzle from Power Wash. I think the alternates, we can be a bit broader, can't we? We can have characters we wouldn't necessarily put in the first six. Come on, Banana. What you got?
So I think my alternate would be flexibility, and for me that's Mario, because across all of Mario's games, all of them, not just the main series, Mario does everything.
Yeah.
Mario teaches typing at some point. Like, there's no one more flexible in my mind than Mario, just because he's had a game in every genre.
It's so good.
Yeah, that's flexibility incarnate.
Well, maybe there's a way that our heroes don't have to fight. We can just get them jobs. We should teach them how to type. Get them all in data entry positions.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll avoid the need
name
for all the
one
drama.
better plumber than Mario.
Johnny Sins?
Was not prepared for that answer.
I wasn't prepared to say it.
could do like Kratos Demolition Crew, you know.
Yeah.
Was there anyone?
Aerith's compost and fertilizer, because she's a corpse.
I thought that was the name of a business for a second. Aerith, compost and fertilizer. Okay, fair enough. Is there anyone, because there was one for me, that you were surprised no one else picked?
I honestly, given that we've both, you and I have picked characters from Final Fantasy VII, I'm surprised neither of us picked Cloud.
I thought he was too flawed. Tifa surprised me a bit, between you and I. Or Vincent, because he's so cool.
Vincent is super cool, but Vincent is a fucking 40-year-old emo.
Okay, you can't have both of those sentences. You've got to have one or the other. You can't have he's cool and he's a 40-year-old emo. You have to pick.
Yeah, tell me which one is
down off
wrong.
that fence.
Okay? I will rescind whichever statement you decide is inaccurate.
I'm afraid to say we both know which one is wrong, and he's not on the team.
I kind of thought that somebody might pick Rex, but then I thought it may be a bit of a reach. I don't know.
No, but he's as heroic as they come, honestly. That would have been a really, really good shout. And
Rex is especially heroic, given that Rex's character arc in Mass Effect 2 is denying everything he had been for years, putting aside the role that he had adopted, he'd been forced into for years, and adopting another one that he didn't want.
I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's Parthenax in Skyrim, who is inherently evil but chooses to do good.
Mm-hmm.
And their argument is essentially, what is better? Is it better to just be good, or to be what I am and to be inherently evil but to still do good? Yeah, Rex would have been a really good shout.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted to bring it down to just the brass tacks of gameplay, he's an absolute tank.
Yeah.
If the leaders were all gone, if Shepard and Chief and Samus were all gone, it would have been a really good call. The one that surprised me that no one picked, it wasn't a big shocker, but I thought it might come up. And they were in my team until I replaced them with Morrigan, who is, in my mind, similar, but a bit more, was Leliana from Dragon Age. I thought she had a chance of making it in. And that surprised me a little.
Well, we haven't really dived deep into the whole Dragon Age lore thing, but I mean, if you want to go with my own hot take of maybe who Liliana may be, the Dragon Age 4 may reveal some things that we don't know, but I think she may just be more than just who she presents to be. So if that's the case, she could be much more powerful than you're thinking. So
Leliana episode.
I mean, in that same regard, I guess it would have been a little surprising that Solus wasn't picked, given that
No, I don't like that.
he is
Prick.
yeah, nobody likes him.
revealed to be far more capable than he's let on. Which
We do have some friends who
infuriated
love him
me.
on Twitch, by the way, who love Solus. Like he's the ride or
Yeah,
die.
that's a weird one for me. Like, I never liked the character, but when you get to the end and that big reveal happens, it's so infuriating because you're like, Solus, you died like 3 times. Why were you hiding all of this power that you could have been using? You could have made this so much easier for me.
And what's
I hate to
crazy
say-
is that there's all these little tiny references that you'll never see unless you play the game through and then go back and play it. He's like, he referenced this and I didn't even catch it. He said this about this and went right over my head.
It'll probably be quite underwhelming, but I remember a few years ago playing Dragon Age Inquisition finally after a really long time. And it got to the end and there was that big reveal about Solus. And I was just sat there thinking, yeah, I don't know who that is. I'm sure this is important, but
It's me playing Final Fantasy 12.
yeah.
This is the big final villain. What's his name?
It's
Sorry,
really-
I wasn't paying attention.
It's really like it's just Anne from Arrested Development. It's just
Who?
him. Who? It felt like such a letdown. I was thinking, by the way, they've clearly put all this effort in, and you get characters that we do know, of course, in that moment from Dragon Age 1, and that beautiful moment, and then big reveal.
Yeah.
Not a clue.
Well, there are moments like,
Neat.
especially when you get to Haven,
Neato.
The Sky Haven, whatever. But when you get there and he's talking to you, you know, because you get to have moments with your companions and stuff, but you have a moment with Solus, and apparently it's just all a dream. So he's able to weave, you know, communication through just dreams. And nobody catches that. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, but it's done naturally. So it almost seems like it's not even part of the, you know, out of the norm.
I'm just imagining that big reveal where Solus tells you who he truly is, and then you just have the main character like, "That's nice."
So yeah, so about the keep. We really
Anybody
do
else
need
hungry?
a dining hall.
Well, so to recap, let's see if we can all remember
gonna be hard work.
Yeah, let's try to remember
Yeah.
our teams here. So Banana, who did you have? Do you remember?
It's Master Chief, Kratos, Aerith, Jill Valentine, Hero, Guybrush Threepwood with Mario as an alternate.
Okay. And I'm trying to remember all of mine again.
Wrote mine down if it helps.
I am older, and the one thing I do forget is names. So bear with me. And I may remember these out of sequence too.
I hope this next bit is really heavily cut.
It
It's just you
could
saying
be.
names
It
one
could
after
be.
the other, but drastically.
Oh,
cut.
I would love if you just like if you name a couple of them and then Tom and I step away and shave.
Who
And
the
it's,
fuck is
it's just
Tom?
like yeah, sorry. if we step away, we shave, we change clothes, we adjust the lighting. It's like presenting this as like 3 months later, Legion has remembered the rest of his team.
Or I list 6 people that weren't even on my team. They're just 6 stuff.
Yeah.
Just name my team.
Legion,
Just name mine.
Legion just repeats somebody else's team entirely.
How didn't we notice that I kept copying his team all
Yeah.
the way through?
Literally every pick.
So let me read my fantasy picks. We're going to have first pick was Samus. Then it was Darth Revan. And then Viconia, Lara Croft, the Dovahkiin, and finally, Garrus.
And I had Commander Shepard, Solid Snake, Nathan Drake, Morrigan, Barrett Wallace, and Kiryu. And the alternate was the hero for Elden.
The King from Burger King? There's a Burger King game. It's terrible.
There's also
They're in Elden Ring as well.
a Colonel Sanders, and it's a romance game.
I've seen that one. That's actually a really good game.
Yeah, a lot of people liked it. It was free. Still free.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's very fun. It's also very funny.
Mm-hmm.
Comments in the chat.
Yeah. Colonel Sanders lore. Next stream.
Yeah. Next episode. How many herbs and spices is too many?
How spicy is too spicy?
I can do a pretty good golem.
No one cares what you have to tweet, Precious.
Not a damn Precious. Okay, I think that's
you
clearly
don't
where we
have
stop. Right?
any followers.
Oh, it's actually right. Come on, let's end it there. This is not going to improve. We've
So
hit
we
the
will.
gut.
Yeah, we will end it there. But like I've mentioned before, any viewers or listeners, if you think one team did superior than the other, put it in the comments. If you have your own team you want to bring up, definitely put it in the comments. We'll definitely reply to those. So until next time, check y'all later.